Hi everyone. This video is to highlight LTL pricing, and specifically if you're not familiar with it, to give you a little bit of help as it pertains to our case study for this year. So LTL pricing, we'll examine it a little bit deeper in our road week, but it's less than truckload. So truckload is fairly simple. But in this video, we're going to calculate some LTL. So we're going to be using this table, which is taken from your case study. And then we're also going to jump into what this area is here, a breakpoint. And then at the end, you should be able to use any LTL table and understand it and be able to price accordingly. So let's start, and let's just look at the table itself. You'll notice that we have two things. I'm going to start on the left-hand side here in blue, and we have distance. And forgive my scratching here, but I'm putting MI above that, and it's in miles. Typically, distances over the road in road transportation are still quoted in miles in North America. No good reason, that's just the way it is. So what we see here is bands of distances. So the first one, for instance, is 0 to 99 miles. So if you fall in between that, then you would use that line, or 100 to 199, etc. You see it all the way down there. Okay. And then across the top, I'm going to switch colors here. Across the top, we have weight. And weight, in keeping with our distance also being in miles, is also in imperial, and this weight is most commonly expressed in pounds. And we do see that here as pounds for each one of the categories. But you'll notice that we really have categories broken up a little bit. We have a group of them. 0 to 99 pounds is the first one. Then we have 1,000 to 1999, and then we have 2,000 to almost 4,000 and 4,000 and above. Then, as I change colors, I'm going to highlight this breakpoint. Okay, and breakpoint is an important concept that happens anytime we have a tiered rate schedule, and it basically just tells us when to go to the next bracket, which we'll look at in a second in terms of pricing. So the example that I want to do is just, we're going to look at a shipment, and I've got a fictitious shipment here. Let me scroll over, and we're going to do it very quickly in 4 different ways. So we'll use these examples as example number 1, example number 2, number 3, and example number 4. Okay, so in the first one, let's take a look at how we do this. I'll start with blue. So we have a shipment that is going 75 miles, and you'll notice for all of our samples, 1, 2, 3, and 4, the distance stays the same. So we're going to go back over to our table here, and we're going to look and see where that would apply. So obviously 75 miles falls in the first bracket here. So we know we're going to be using this row. Okay, the next thing to look at is our weight. So in this scenario, we have 500 pounds. And again, we're simply going to look at our table, and we're going to say, okay, I'm in this very first bracket of 0 to 999 pounds. 500 pounds fits nicely in there. So my rate, as I zoom in here, my rate is $70. That's this rate right here, $70. But you'll notice that the rate is expressed in something called CWT, and that is per 100 pounds. It literally means cent weight or 100 weight. It is an acronym that we use, and it simply creates pricing in per 100 pound increments instead of pricing per pound. So we just have to take that into consideration when we apply our pricing. So it is really simple that 500 pounds, if we convert that to 100 weight, is 500 weight because it's simply 500. Sorry, let me zoom in here. And we'll get rid of that. So to convert something to 100 weight, you simply divide it by 100. Okay, so I'm going to stay in blue for this first one. So 500 pounds is the same as saying 500 weight. Okay, so that makes sense. Let me undo that. Okay. All right, so let's look at our pricing for that. Now I know in that table, for this weight and this distance, it gave us a rate of $70 per hundredweight. Let me clean that up a little bit. So it was $70 per CWT, which really means all we have to do is go 5 times 70, and I don't need a calculator for this. That is $350. And you have figured out the line haul portion, or the transportation. You can use either word. You figured it out. So we know that to move 500 pounds according to this schedule, 75 miles, is going to cost us $350. Now your fuel surcharge is typically a percent based, and in this case it is 19. It is 19%. That's what the case gives us. Sorry for the percentage. Now I've pre-did some of this math, so I know that that is equal to 350 times 0.19 is equal to $66.50. Okay, so our total is simply 350 plus the 66.50. So our total is $416.50. You have priced your very first LTL shipment. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to change colors here now. And let's take a look. And we're going to go right to the bottom. We're going to go to example number 4, which is 1,000 pounds. Okay, so in this case, we've got to go back to our table here. If we had 1,000 pounds, our distance is still 75 miles. So we know that we're still going to stay in this very initial distance bracket. But now, instead of being in the first weight bracket of 0 to 99 pounds, we fall in this second bracket, which is 1,000 to 1,999 pounds. So our rate decreases to $56 again per 100 pounds. Now that, the rate decreasing, we could spend a lot of time on it, but essentially, the more weight that you give a carrier, the faster they can move the goods. And particularly in LTL, a truck has to consolidate. So you imagine a big truck. If you fill it up, it can move right away. If you don't fill it up, then it takes longer to add more shipments to it. So the more weight you give, the carrier is willing to decrease the price. It also has a lot to do with spreading fixed costs over, but we don't have time to get into that in this particular video, over distances. So we know now that to ship 1,000 pounds, if we do this math again, what that table told us is that our rate is $56 per hundredweight. Now, 1,000 pounds, we can do the quick math, is 10 hundredweight, 10 100 pounds increments. We're going to times that by 56, and again, I don't need my calculator. That is a simple $560. Okay, so this kind of intuitively makes sense. Remember, in the first example, we moved 500 pounds for $350. Now we're doubling the weight, but we're not quite doubling the cost, right? The carrier is willing to give us a bit of a break, so we're tendering them more weight, so the price is a little bit below double. It's 560 instead of 700 would be exclusively double. Now we add in our fuel. Again, it's 19%, so we simply 560 times 0.19, and that will give us a fuel surcharge of $106.40. And then as I move over here, if I were to sum all of those up, and I'm just going to separate this so we got a nice neat separation here, that would equal $666.40. Again, I apologize for the chicken scratch, but I think you can make out my writing there. Okay, 2 scenarios done. I want to talk about the breakpoints and the reason why we need to understand them. The breakpoints essentially give us, I'm going to change to red for this instance, the breakpoints give us a point in time at which we're better off, even if we fall literally within a bracket, to jump to the next charge of the next bracket. Don't worry about that right now. Let's take a look at how it actually works. Okay, so the example that I'm going to do is just 800 pounds. Okay, so now we've got 800 pounds. We're going to do example number 2. Okay, still the same mileage, still 75 miles, so we stay on the same line. Okay, if we go back to our table and we look up 800 pounds, we still fall in this very first bracket here, 0 to 999 pounds. So the rate stays the same at $70. Ignore the breakpoint for a second. So let's go and do the math, because we're pretty good at doing that now. Doesn't take us very long. So 800 pounds is 8 CWT, right? Because 800 is 800 weight increments. and we're simply going to go 8 times 70, which is our rate, and 8 times 70 is 560, right? If I'm doing my math correctly, $560. Okay, pretty simple. Now we add in our fuel surcharge of 19%, which in this case ends up being $106.40. So what does our total end up being? So our total under scenario number 2 ends up being $666.40. Huh. Okay, let's zoom out and look at our table for a second. Oh, I kind of cheated in. I'm going to separate these. Kind of cheated into the space below in example number 3 there a little bit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to change my color to black. So what we notice here is that if we ship 800 pounds, it is going to cost us $666.40. Look at what happens when you shipped 1,000 pounds. The cost is the same, $666.40. That's because, remember, your rate is decreasing. In the 1,000, as soon as you get to 1,000 pounds, your rate drops from $70 in the first bracket down to this $56. That is sometimes advantageous to you because you can say to your carrier, hey, I know I'm not giving you 1,000 pounds, but why don't you just bill me 1,000 pounds, even though I didn't give you 1,000 pounds. I may have given you less than that. So the break point, and the reason why in this example I selected 800 pounds, which is actually what the break point for that particular pairing is, which a break point affects the brackets above and below. The break point is that tipping point. Think of it at the point that as soon as you reach that point and you're above it, you're actually going to be better to say to your carrier, listen, bill me 1,000 pounds rather than staying literally in the bracket I belong to, because it's going to work out to be a little cheaper for me. So let's do that real quick and you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to try this yellow color and see if this works. Okay, so 900 pounds, that should be okay. So 900 pounds we know is 9 hundredweight, and 9 hundredweight literally still falls within this first bracket here, right? 0 to 999 pounds. So if we stayed in this bracket and we paid $70, let's see what that figures out to be. Let me scroll back over to our table. So 9 times $70. So in this instance, that is $630. Okay, so hopefully you can make that out. I've lost a little bit of room here, but the fuel surcharge remains at 19%. So that would equal $119.70. Doing my math correctly, which I am. So the total ends up being $749.70. So remember, let me zoom out here a little bit. Oops. I'm going to zoom out so we can look at this table as a whole. Okay, so now I'm going to switch back to, actually I'll stay on the yellow color for right now. Okay, so now we've got our 4 scenarios and have all been priced, right? Scenario number 1, I'm going to check them off here, $416 for 500 pounds, we get it. In the next scenario, 800 pounds, the price goes up. We understand that, to $666. We know there's interesting phenomenon down here at 1,000 pounds. Because we drop the rate, although we have more weight, the rate per hundredweight declines. So it actually ends up being the same. So these two scenarios, 800 and 1,000, are the same. Now, if we stayed literally in the bracket, the first bracket for our 900 pounds, we'd actually end up paying $749 here, which, as you know, I mean, it's more expensive than the 666. So there's an example that once you're above that break point, let me zoom back over here. Once you're above the weight of that break point, then you're better off to say, hey, carrier, I would like you to bill me 1,000 pounds at the next bracket at the reduced rate because it's going to be cheaper for me. Okay? That's all that a breakpoint does. It's important that you understand that when you're pricing so that you know that when to move to the next bracket. So for instance, if we took an example where I'm going to move down to the bottom of the table, and in the 1,000 pounds to 999 pounds, we see an example here. You know, if we're moving 4,000 miles, we may have a rate of $102.35. Well, and remember, I mean, that is anywhere between, this bracket says anywhere between 1,000 and 1,999 pounds. Okay, but the breakpoint listed just to the right of it says 1,780 pounds. And that's your tipping point to say, you know what, if I'm above 1,780 pounds, I'm going to ask you to take me over here. And I want you to bill me for 2,000 pounds as I look up at the 91.90 rate, because it's going to be cheaper for me to pay for 2,000 pounds at that lower rate than to stay literally in the bracket that I belong to. Okay? It's an important concept. Hopefully that quickly demonstrates how it works. I would encourage you to play with it a little bit and just make sure that you understand the breakpoints. You don't necessarily need to always understand how to calculate the breakpoints, and we can do another video that shows you how to do that if it's beneficial. But for now, really, you just have to understand how to use the table to price. And it really is that simple. So I hope that that helps. And if you have any other questions, please post them on the board. Thanks.